Welcome to English Literature for Everyone. I'm your educator Arushi, and today I will discuss Structure, Sign, and Play in Discourse of Human Sciences by Jacques Derrida. This particular essay is included in the syllabus of Lucknow University MA English Semester 2, and it is a seminal work of Jacques Derrida where he introduces us to the concept of deconstruction. So we will cover that in this particular video. If you want me to cover any other topics from your university or college, do let me know in the comment section below. Like and share this video for more such content. Start with who Jacques Derrida was. He was a French philosopher who popularized and also started the theory of deconstruction. With the theory of deconstruction, Derrida also started the era of post-structuralism. In the later slides, I'll discuss what reconstruction is and how that particular theory is associated with post-structuralism. Some of the important works of Derrida include Of Grammatology, Writing and Differences, and Speech and Phenomena. All of these work aid in our understanding of deconstruction. However, it is not relevant with this particular essay that we are talking about, so I will not expand on it. So let's discuss a little bit about the essay. Initially, this essay was written as a lecture that Derrida gave at Johns Hopkins University in 1966. Also, this essay was supposedly pro-structuralism. It was supposed to advocate for the theory of structuralism. But when Derrida did a close reading of Ferdinand de Saussure's work, he noticed that the theory of structuralism was very confusing. So he wrote this essay that questions the credibility of structuralisms and provides this theory of deconstruction that is supposedly an answer to that problem. Now, coming on to the essay, Derrida opens his essay by stating that the philosophy of structuralism is very old and has always been an integral part of Western world. And through this structuralism, the world has been divided into binary opposites. The concept of binary opposition is very important in this essay. I'll explain this with an example. Like if I ask you what the word dry means, okay, so you would say that an object is dry when it is not wet or when it does not have any liquid on it. So the concept of dryness is defined by its opposite. The opposite of dry is wet, and we are defining the concept of dry by using the word wet. Okay, something that is not wet is it is dry. Says that the entire world is defined in binary oppositions. Okay, earliest religious text, Book of Genesis, Derrida says that there's a concept of light and darkness. Okay, so the light is defined as an absence of darkness. Again, it is defined by its binary opposite. So, concept of structuralism has always existed in the Western world. Okay, and he says that when the world was geocentric. Now, what does we mean? He mean by geocentric? It was a belief when people thought that the Earth was the center of solar system, that the sun, moon, and all the planets revolve around the Earth. Okay, so that belief was geocentric. So during the geocentric time, Earth was considered as the center of the structure. And as we evolved, as the telescope got invented, as scholars started studying, okay, the Earth is no longer the center of the solar system. Now, Sun is the center of solar system. The center has shifted, but the center always exists. Okay, this is what Derrida says. Now, structuralism has become an integral part of our life. And if we see our world through binary opposition, we will limit our understanding and our belief. Derrida introduces the term free play, where a person can entertain multiple possibility and meaning. So here is a quote. The center is at the center of totality, yet the center does not belong to the totality. The totality has its center elsewhere. Now, what does this quote mean? Let's understand this with an example. If I ask you who Shakespeare was, you might say he was a famous Elizabethan dramatist. Then I would ask what a dramatist is. You would say that someone who writes play or drama. Then I would ask you what is a drama. Now, with each definition, we are moving away from the center. With each question, the center shifts itself. And this is what Derrida is saying. Center is the answer of my question, who was Shakespeare. But as I keep asking more about the meaning of the center, we move away from the structure. For instance, you cannot answer my question by telling me the meaning of drama, yet you have to do so I can understand my answer, right? If I ask you who Shakespeare is, you cannot give me the definition of drama. That is not the correct answer. Yet, in order to understand the word dramatist, I have to understand the word drama. I will further elaborate this particular concept when we will talk about Différance. It is another concept by Derrida. Okay. He also states that the center holds meaning, which is important, which is why Western philosophy always tries to locate a center. Okay, which is why they always try to define a center. However, the search of center suggest one or two things. The first thing that it suggests, the center does not exist. You only search for something when it does not exist or you don't have it, right? Or the center that we do have is not sufficient. It has some problem associated with it. So this is what Derrida says, that the center that we are chasing after, either it does not exist or the center that we do think exists, for example, in the case of Earth and the Sun, or the meaning of the word dramatist, okay, they are not the perfect meaning. They are not quite sufficient with regard to the structure. Derrida expands on one of the problem with centers, and he says that when we focus solely on centers, we exclude other possibilities and marginalize people or marginalize ideas that do not associate with center. Okay. So in order to understand this concept, let's take an example. So paganism was marginalized in a Christian society because it did not sit with their center. What was the center of Christian society? God, Jesus, and Bible. And anything that did not sit well with it or was contradicting it was excluded from the text and the scriptures. And eventually people started following it, and that's how paganism was villainized. So Derrida here says that if they had introduced the idea of free play, basically entertaining other possibilities, no such clash of religion would be there. People would be able to accept multiple narratives and they will be able to choose whatever they like the best. Now, Derrida also discusses the ambiguity in language. So, meaning of a word is different to different people. For example, if I ask you to imagine an apple, some of you will imagine a red apple, some of you might think of a green apple, some of you could also think of a cartoonish image of an apple. Okay, so the exact image or the meaning in our mind is not as same as everyone. Similarly, let's take a word interest. If I ask you to explain its meaning, some of you might say that it means when we desire something, when we are interested in it. Okay. While some of you might think that it is, I'm talking amount that a bank takes away from you, or some of you might even think about the interest that you get from FD or from mutual funds. Okay. So the meaning of this one word, interest, differs from people to people. The meaning of the word is not fixed. So likewise, the meaning of the word that I will use to explain apple or interest will also have multiple meaning. For example, the word desire that I've used to explain interest, it can also mean different thing to different people, right? Similarly, if I say that an apple is red or an apple is green, what shade of green or red am I talking about? It is not same for all of us to imagine an exact same thing. Okay. So, this is what Derrida says, that the language in itself is very ambiguous. Now, he introduces the concept of difference. Uh, so, this word is a mixture of defer and defer. DEFER, defer, means to postpone something, while DIFFER means to be different or to be variable. So, this particular word means both of these things simultaneously. Okay. Now, let's understand the concept of difference with an example. To explain a meaning, let's say the word interest, I use the word desirable. To explain the meaning of desirable, I use the word likable. Now, I'll continue this process until the listener or you admit that you have understood the meaning of the word. Okay, the meaning that you say that you have understood is a supposed meaning, not the actual meaning. For time being, you have assumed that, okay, I've understood this concept. Now, when you think about it, there is no such word that would truly convey the meaning of the word interest. There's no one word that I'll say and you will immediately understand what I really mean. Okay. And whatever meaning that you will assume or I'll assume, it is hypothetical. It is just a frictional meaning that for time being that I've associated. So this particular idea is difference. Now, difference has two important parts. The first part is difference of meaning, which means that one word can have multiple meaning. Okay. Similarly, sentence can have multiple narratives. I've just stated an example of this. The word interest can either mean a term regarding money or it can mean desirability. Okay. Now, the second facet of difference is deferral of meaning. So, when I have talked about the meaning of the word interest, for a time being, you have understood, okay, I understand the meaning of desirability or I understand the meaning of likable. Okay, for the time being, you have understood a supposed meaning. This is what we mean by deferral of meaning. Now, continuing with the structure in his center, Derrida states that the concept of center has existed under a different name. We consider the whole humankind and the universe to be part of structure. Therefore, the center has always existed. At first, the center was God. Later, with the Renaissance and the Reformation, humanity became the center. After that, rationality became popular through essays and non-fiction work. By the start of 20th century, the center again shifted towards subconscious mind with the theory of Freud and with the work of Virginia Woolf. So overall, the concept of center has always existed. A center essentially holds the meaning of our life. However, if we look closely at the center, it is very variable, right? With time and with evolution, the meaning of the center shifts itself and the meaning of our existence change. For example, if I take that question, who was Shakespeare? In order to define William Shakespeare, you have to define the words that you will use. For example, I said that William Shakespeare was the Elizabethan dramatist. Okay, and you will define the word dramatist. What does that word mean? Then, in order to explain that word, you will also explain the meaning of drama. To explain the meaning of drama, you will explain me the meaning of dialogues and actions. Okay, so as I go on, I have moved away from my initial question and shifted towards a different conversation. So, from this particular example, we understand two things. First, the center is not fixed, it keeps evolving to accommodate different meaning. And secondly, the center or the meaning of the structure is not within the structure, it exists far outside the structure. Building on to this, Derrida further explains that the binary opposition restricts our understanding of the world. Okay, let's understand this particular sentence with an example. If I say that the light is absence of dark, so subconsciously I'm creating a hierarchy where I've considered that the light is better than dark. Okay. Where I will say that during light we do our meaningful work, during light there's less crime, etc. etc. Okay. So I have associated light with goodness and darkness with evil. However, if we break the binary opposition and try to look at both of these concepts individually, what I'll say that darkness is essential for human survival. If we live in a world that is only covered with light, we will never be able to rest. So darkness is essential. Okay, it is soothing in a sense. So in order to understand the concept, we need to break it and study it individually. This process of breaking a binary opposition and the structure is essentially deconstruction. There is this ongoing debate about science versus faith, science versus religion. Okay, and in this particular argument, people who advocate for science, they say that okay, science is based on fact and reason, while religion is often based on myth and stories. Okay, So if we study both of these things individually, we'll see that even in science, sometimes scientists and researchers take hypotheses or assumptions to come to a conclusion. Okay, sometimes we study multiple theories that are yet to be proven because the experiments or the technology is not available for us to confirm the theory or to deny the theory. Okay, the science in this particular way, we will realize that it is not all just facts and reason. Some amount of assumptions and some amount of hypothesis also takes place. Now, similarly with religion, in some of the religious stories, you will find that it has mentioned some places that still exist. Okay, so we cannot say that the all the religious stories are made up or they are fictional. They have a certain origin, they have certain connection to the very real place, so they are not entirely mythical. So some of its aspect might be true. So when we look at religion and science individually, we will better understand it, and this is what Derrida is talking about. Now, Derrida states that the human sciences rely on traditional structuralist framework. Okay, and he gives an example of ethnology. Now, ethnology is a study of human race, and this branch developed in Europe. So Derrida says that if an European who was studying other races, studying it through the lens of structuralism, he will not be able to realistically study other cultures because he will be too occupied with his own biases. Let's take an example. Let's say there's a European man who comes from a patriarchal society. Okay, and he goes to West Africa and he sees a matriarchal tribe or a society, and at first he will hold a very strong bias against it, that how women could be matriarch or how they could be the head of the family. And even if he tries to remove his own biases, he will still not do a very good job in representing that culture. So this is what Derrida is saying, that structuralism essentially limits our ability to see other facets of life. Now Derrida introduces us to the concept of bricolage. So this particular word means that whenever someone uses whatever they have at hand to create something. For example, if you have only blue and orange color, so you would create a painting only using these two colors. Okay, so now let's understand how this particular concept fits in deconstruction. So Derrida says that every discourse or every communication that we have is done by using our pre-existing knowledge. Whatever books we consume, whatever TV shows we see, whatever conversations we have already had with other people will ultimately shape how we communicate with someone, right? So whenever we talk to someone, we use words that we have already used before. It is not like when I'm talking to you, I will immediately invent a new word, right? Like this concept of deconstruction that I'm teaching you, I've already read about it in my class and in other books. This is not some new word or a new invention of mine that I'm talking about. Okay, and this is what Derrida says. So when it comes to language, a person should be open to multiple interpretations so that they do not limit themselves to new experience. Now, Derrida talks about the concept of totalization. Totalization means a structure that has everything. And Derrida states that a linguistic structure cannot be complete. It always excludes totalization because every linguistic structure will miss out on one concept or the other. For example, as we evolve, our language also evolves. And as our language evolves, we add new words. There was a time when the word computer did not exist in the English language. Likewise, the word internet and social media was not very common or did not exist in the language, right? As these technology came into our life, we started using it in our daily conversations. So Derrida says that any language cannot be total since it will always miss on a concept or an idea. Okay, instead, a language is supposed to be supplementary, where it is capable of adding new words or making up for a concept by borrowing other words. For example, the word shampoo, if you know, it originates from India. Initially, the word for shampoo did not exist because the concept of shampoo did not exist, right? So this is what he says, that either a concept, either the word will be borrowed or it will be added new based on its need. Now, Derrida concludes his essay by stating that the free play essentially allows us to think differently and it encourages actual freedom of thoughts and ideas. So, one should not feel at loss regarding the absence of center. They should enjoy their life and try to think freely. With this, we come to the end of our class. If you like the video, share and subscribe to my channel. If you have any doubts, do let me know in the comments below.